The rich cowboy faked sleep to test his shy maid, but froze in shock at what she did next. Cole sat in the wide leather chair of his ranch office, the late afternoon sun streaming through the tall windows and casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor. The ranch had been in his family for generations, a vast spread of land that stretched over rolling hills, golden pastures, and forests that seemed endless. He had grown up here, learning to ride horses before he could even walk properly, and to mend fences before he was 10. But despite the beauty of the land and the freedom it offered, there was always a quiet loneliness in the air, a stillness that reminded him how isolated a life like his could be. He looked around the office, his eyes sweeping over the books neatly lined on the shelves, the mounted deer heads on the wall, and the large desk that bore the weight of his responsibilities. The ranch wasn't just a home. It was a business, a legacy he had to preserve. Employees came and went, but there were only a few he truly trusted, and among them was Lila the maid. Lila was quiet, almost invisible at times, but she had a careful way of moving through the house that made everything seem lighter, tidier, and more cared for. She had arrived a few months ago, recommended by one of Cole's longtime friends, and he had been impressed by her humility and diligence. She never complained, never asked for anything beyond her work, and she performed every task with a thoroughness that made him relax in a way he hadn't felt with any other staff member. Cole didn't know much about her past, and he hadn't pressed. Lila had always been reserved, keeping to herself, and he liked it that way. But at the same time, curiosity gnawed at him. What was she truly like when no one was watching? Was her quiet nature shyness? Or was there more beneath the surface that she didn't reveal? He found himself studying her habits, the little gestures she made, the way she arranged flowers or folded laundry. It was strange, but he felt an odd fascination with her character, a desire to understand her fully without disturbing her sense of comfort. Outside, the wind rustled through the tall grass and the leaves of the old oaks that lined the driveway. The horses in the stable nickered softly, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of a tractor hummed. Life on the ranch moved slowly, deliberately, and there was a rhythm to the day that Cole had grown to rely on. Yet, despite all this, he felt a kind of emptiness he couldn't shake. He had wealth, land, and freedom, but companionship was rare, and trust was rarer still. Lila moved quietly in the background, carrying out her duties with a diligence that sometimes startled Cole because it seemed effortless. She dusted the shelves, arranged the silverware, polished the windows until the sunlight gleamed off them, and moved with such precision that it was almost hypnotic to watch. He noticed the care she took in small details, the way she smoothed out a crease in a tablecloth, the way she paused to listen to the quiet ticking of the clocks in the house. There was a gentleness in her movements that spoke of someone thoughtful, careful, and kind. Cole remembered the first day she arrived. She had been shy, nervous even, bowing her head slightly as she introduced herself. Her voice had been soft but clear, polite and sincere. She had said she was happy to work here, and she had meant it. Since then, she had proved herself in ways that made him respect her more than he cared to admit. She wasn't just performing tasks. She seemed to care about the house, about the people, and in some quiet way about the ranch itself. There was a moment that day, weeks ago, that had lingered in his mind. He had left a letter on his desk for one of the suppliers, planning to return in an hour. When he came back, he found it neatly placed in an envelope on top of a folder he had left open. He hadn't asked her to do it, and yet she had done it without fuss. That simple act, small to anyone else, had struck him deeply. It was the kind of thoughtfulness that couldn't be faked, the kind of character that couldn't be taught. Cole sighed, leaning back in his chair. He knew he shouldn't be analyzing her so much, but he couldn't help himself. He wanted to understand her, not just as a maid, but as a person. There was something about her that felt different. Someone who didn't demand attention yet drew it in a way that was impossible to ignore. He watched her now, carrying a basket of clean laundry into the hall, her footsteps light against the wooden floors. She didn't notice him watching, and he liked it that way. There was a purity to her work, a sincerity that made him almost ache with curiosity. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the ranch, Cole thought about how life could be so quiet and predictable, yet still hold surprises. He had never known someone like Lila before, someone who seemed so simple on the surface but clearly carried depth and integrity beneath. He wondered what she thought of him. Did she see him as the stern, wealthy cowboy he appeared to be? Or did she notice the loneliness in his eyes, the weight of responsibility that pressed on his shoulders every day? For a moment he allowed himself to imagine a conversation with her, not about work, not about duties, but just a real conversation. Two people connecting honestly. It was an unusual thought for him, one he didn't often entertain. Yet he found himself smiling slightly at the idea, imagining her shy smile, her soft voice, and the way she would tilt her head when listening carefully. The ranch was peaceful now, the evening approaching, and the lights in the house began to flicker on. Cole stood and walked over to the window, looking out at the vast fields and the stable where the horses had settled for the night. He felt a quiet contentment mixed with anticipation, a sense that something was about to shift, though he didn't yet know what. Lila moved through the rooms with her usual care, unaware of the thoughts swirling in Cole's mind. To her it was just another evening, another set of tasks to complete before the day ended. She hummed softly as she worked, a gentle melody that added warmth to the house. Cole listened for a moment, struck by the simplicity of the sound and the comfort it brought. He realized then that perhaps the reason he was so intrigued by her was not because she was extraordinary in a dramatic way, but because she was real. She didn't pretend, she didn't put on airs, and she didn't seek attention. She simply existed with sincerity and integrity, qualities that were rare and, in Cole's experience, deeply admirable. As the sun finally sank below the horizon, leaving a soft pink and orange glow across the sky, Cole felt a strange mixture of curiosity and respect for the shy maid who moved quietly through his home. He didn't yet know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew that Lila had already changed something within him. A reminder that even in a life as controlled and solitary as his, there could still be moments of unexpected connection, quiet revelations, and human warmth. Cole returned to his chair and sat down, hands resting on the desk. He watched the shadows grow longer, thinking about the rhythm of life on the ranch, about loyalty, about kindness, and about the shy maid whose presence had begun to feel like more than just part of the household. Perhaps he thought there was a lesson to be learned in the simplicity of her character. Perhaps there was more to discover, more to understand, if only he was patient enough to watch and wait. The night settled in, bringing with it the quiet sounds of the countryside. The horses snorted softly in the stables. The wind whispered through the trees, and somewhere in the house Lila continued her work, unaware that she had already captured the full attention of the ranch owner. Cole leaned back, a faint smile on his lips, thinking that tomorrow he might learn something new, not from observing her work, but from understanding the kind of person she truly was. The next morning, the ranch was alive with a gentle hum of activity. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, reflecting off the polished wooden floors and illuminating the vast rooms that had been meticulously cared for. Cole had risen early, as was his habit, riding out to check the horses before breakfast, but today his thoughts kept drifting back to Lila. Her quiet demeanor, her careful movements, and her genuine attention to every small task lingered in his mind. He watched her from the doorway as she moved through the dining hall, arranging the table for breakfast. The plates were spotless, the silverware gleamed in the morning sun, and the linens were perfectly straight. Every action she took was precise, measured, and done without hesitation. Yet, despite her careful attention, there was something soft and natural in her movements, a simplicity that made even mundane chores seem graceful. Cole felt a strange mixture of admiration and curiosity. He wondered what she thought about him, about the ranch, about life in general. Cole had always been observant, trained to notice the smallest details, whether it was in the way a horse moved or the way a guest behaved in his home. But Lila was different. She wasn't putting on a show. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just existed in the space she occupied, quietly making it better. That authenticity was rare, and it fascinated him. After breakfast, Cole returned to his office under the pretense of dealing with paperwork, but his real intention was more subtle. He wanted to see Lila in her natural state, without the pressure of an audience or expectation. He considered a small, harmless experiment, just a way to observe how she would react in an unusual situation. The thought came to him not as cruelty, but his curiosity. He didn't doubt her abilities. He wanted to see the depth of her character, the way she responded when the unexpected happened. He planned it carefully. He would pretend to be asleep in his office that afternoon. It was simple enough. He would recline in his chair, close his eyes, and let her think he was resting. He wanted to see if she would pause, hesitate, or act in any unusual way, and he tried to reassure himself that this was not about testing obedience, but understanding character. Meanwhile, Lila moved through the house, unaware of Cole's plan. She carried laundry, tidied rooms, and polished surfaces, all while humming softly. Her day was filled with small tasks, each completed with diligence and care. She took pride in her work, not for praise, but because she valued the sense of order and cleanliness it brought to the home. There was a quiet satisfaction in seeing the house neat and welcoming, a reflection of her own inner sense of calm. As the afternoon approached, Cole settled into his chair, adjusting the back so that he could lean comfortably. He made sure the room appeared empty, the door slightly ajar so he could see anyone entering. Then he closed his eyes and let himself drift into stillness, feigning sleep. He waited quietly, listening to the subtle sounds of the house, Leila's soft footsteps, the rustle of fabric, the distant neigh of a horse. Each sound was amplified in the quiet of the room, and he felt a strange anticipation, a tension mixed with curiosity. Lila entered the office carrying a small stack of papers, intending to organize some documents that had been left on the desk. She noticed Cole immediately, or so he thought, and paused for a moment at the doorway. He held his breath, watching her reaction, expecting perhaps a slight hesitation or nervous glance. But instead she smiled softly to herself, as if seeing a sleeping animal rather than a man, and continued with her work. She placed the papers neatly on the desk, making sure they were organized in the correct order. Then she adjusted a chair that had been slightly out of place, ensuring it was perfectly aligned with the desk. Cole watched, astonished by her careful attention. She moved with intention, not fear, not hesitation, but a quiet confidence that surprised him. Then she did something he hadn't anticipated. Instead of leaving immediately, she approached him cautiously, pausing a few steps away. Her hand hovered in the air for a moment, as if unsure whether to touch him. Cole's heart began to beat faster, a mix of surprise and anticipation flooding through him. She bent down slightly and placed a small folded blanket over his shoulders, as if she sensed he might be cold. It was a gesture so natural, so human, that it caught him completely off guard. Cole froze, realizing that Lila's reaction was not one of hesitation or fear, but of genuine care. She had acted instinctively, without thought of reward or approval, simply responding to what she felt was right. It was a small gesture, almost invisible to anyone else, but to Cole it spoke volumes. He had expected nervousness, perhaps awkwardness, but not this quiet courage and empathy. For a long moment he remained still, observing her. She straightened the blanket, adjusted a few papers, and then, satisfied, she moved toward the door. But before she left, she turned back and whispered softly, "You seemed tired. I hope this helps." Her voice was barely audible, yet it carried a sincerity that resonated deeply with him. Cole sat there, stunned. He had never experienced such a simple, human gesture that spoke so loudly about someone's character. He realized that all his assumptions about Lila had been incomplete. She was not merely shy. She was thoughtful, brave in her quiet way, and capable of empathy that went beyond expectation. He leaned back in his chair, letting the sensation of surprise settle in. He thought about the loneliness of his life, the isolation he had accepted as normal, and how this small act of kindness had shifted something inside him. For the first time in a long while, he felt a connection to someone in the house that was not about duty or work, but about genuine humanity. As the day wore on, Cole found himself unable to focus on his work. He kept replaying the moment in his mind, analyzing every movement, every glance, every whisper. It wasn't curiosity alone. It was a profound respect forming quietly, almost imperceptibly, in his heart. He had expected a test of compliance, but what he had witnessed was an affirmation of character. Lila had acted without fear or hesitation, guided solely by her own moral compass and sense of empathy. Later, he caught glimpses of her as she continued her duties, moving through the halls, organizing rooms, tending to small tasks with the same careful attention. Each movement was deliberate, precise, and yet filled with an unspoken grace. Cole realized that he had underestimated her, thinking her quiet nature meant she was timid. In reality, her quietness was strength. Her shyness was not weakness but a sign of careful observation, thoughtfulness, and self-respect. By evening, the ranch had settled into its usual calm. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The horses were in the stables. The wind whispered through the trees, and inside the house, the lights glowed softly against the walls. Cole remained in his office, reflecting on the day, replaying the simple gestures of Lila, and understanding that her character could not be judged by appearances alone. He realized that genuine qualities reveal themselves not through observation alone but through subtle, instinctive actions. And in that realization he felt a shift, a quiet, profound understanding that would change the way he viewed her from that day forward. She was not just a maid performing tasks. She was a person of integrity, courage, and heart. Cole leaned back in his chair once more, letting the weight of the day and the realization settle in. The quiet house, the fading light, and the gentle sounds of the ranch became a backdrop for a newfound respect and admiration for the shy maid who had acted with such instinctive care. Tomorrow, he thought, might bring more surprises, more revelations, and perhaps a deeper understanding of the person who had quietly captured his attention. And as the night embraced the ranch, Cole knew that the simple act of kindness he had witnessed would remain in his memory, a reminder that true character often appears in the smallest, quietest moments. He had set out to observe, to understand, and perhaps to test. But in the process, he had discovered something far more valuable: the depth of a person's heart and the quiet strength that can exist beneath a shy exterior. The morning sun spilled through the windows once again, painting the ranch in warm, golden light. Birds chirped softly outside, and the gentle rustle of the trees created a serene backdrop for the day. Cole had risen earlier than usual, restless after the events of the previous day. His thoughts lingered on Lila, the quiet, careful, and unexpectedly brave maid whose simple act of kindness had unsettled him in the best way. He had expected her to be cautious, maybe even timid, but she had surprised him. Her gesture of placing a blanket over him, of speaking softly, had revealed a depth he hadn't anticipated. And now, as he sat at his desk trying to concentrate on the reports and letters that required his attention, he realized he couldn't stop thinking about her. Every move she had made, every glance, every soft-spoken word replayed in his mind. Cole leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with his hands. There was a part of him that wanted to test her further, not out of doubt or suspicion, but out of curiosity. He wondered how she would behave in moments that were unusual, moments when her instincts were the only guide. He wanted to understand her fully, not just the hard-working, obedient maid, but the person beneath. By mid-morning, Lila moved through the house, carrying her usual duties with quiet grace. She hummed softly as she worked, tidying up rooms, arranging items, and tending to the small details that often went unnoticed. Cole observed her from the office doorway, careful not to startle her, noting the same gentle confidence she had displayed the day before. She moved with purpose, but there was also a softness to her actions, a thoughtfulness that made the house feel alive. Cole decided to enact a small experiment, not one that would embarrass or frighten her, but a way to see how she reacted to a slightly unexpected situation. He would leave a cup of tea on the desk in his office and then pretend to step out, leaving her with the room and the items within it. It was a harmless test, and he convinced himself that it was a way to understand her instincts better. He placed the tea carefully on the desk and left the office quietly, giving her a chance to approach the items naturally. From the hall, he observed her movements, waiting to see what she would do. Lila entered the office soon after, her eyes scanning the room as if taking note of every detail. She paused at the cup of tea, then looked around, noticing that no one else was present. Instead of ignoring it, she approached carefully. She picked up the cup, inspecting it briefly, and then set it down in a safe place, making sure it would not spill. Her actions were deliberate, calm, and thoughtful. Cole's curiosity grew. He wanted to see what she would do next. Then she noticed a folder on the desk that had been left slightly open. Papers peeked out from the edges, and some appeared to have fallen during the morning's activity. Lila bent down, carefully straightening the papers and sliding them back into place. Her fingers moved with precision, her movements gentle and steady. She didn't rush, she didn't fumble, and she didn't seem nervous. She simply did what needed to be done, quietly and efficiently. Cole watched, astonished by her natural confidence. She wasn't just following instructions or completing tasks mechanically. She was acting with awareness, guided by thoughtfulness rather than fear. It was clear that she had a keen sense of responsibility, a kind of quiet bravery that Cole had never seen in anyone else who had worked in his home. As she continued, Lila noticed a small photograph that had been placed on the desk. It was a picture of the ranch from years ago, with Cole's family standing proudly in front of the main house. She picked it up carefully, examining it for a moment, and then replaced it with equal care. Her attention to detail, her gentle handling of the items, and the care in every movement made Cole's chest tighten slightly. He realized that her actions were not just about completing chores. They reflected her character, her respect for people and things, and her quiet sense of morality. Then, something unexpected happened. Lila heard a soft creak behind her, the floorboard shifting under her weight, and she turned quickly, scanning the room. Cole had remained perfectly still, watching her reaction with interest. Instead of being startled or frozen, she smiled softly to herself, as if she were reassured rather than afraid. She moved closer to the chair where Cole had been sitting yesterday, then paused again. Her next action was one Cole had not anticipated. She knelt down, adjusting a cushion on the chair, smoothing the fabric carefully. Then, she straightened the blanket that lay across it, folding it neatly. The act was simple, yet there was a grace to it, a naturalness that spoke of instinct and character. Cole's heart raced, both from surprise and from admiration. She had not hesitated. She had acted decisively, yet with gentleness. Cole found himself leaning against the wall, trying not to make a sound. He realized that he had been wrong in thinking her shyness meant timidity. Lila was shy in social situations, yes, but that did not make her weak. In fact, her actions revealed strength, a quiet, thoughtful strength that spoke louder than words. Lila continued to move through the office, checking the shelves, straightening papers, and ensuring that everything was in order. She hummed softly as she worked, the sound filling the quiet room. Cole noticed the faint crease in her brow as she concentrated, the gentle tilt of her head as she examined an item, the careful way she handled the objects in the room. Each movement was deliberate, yet there was an ease to it, a natural confidence that left him astonished. Then, she did something that left him completely frozen. She approached the desk and, without hesitation, placed the cup of tea in the center of the mat, adjusted the pen neatly beside it, and folded the edges of the papers in perfect alignment. She leaned slightly closer to the chair where he had pretended to sit yesterday, whispering softly, as if speaking to someone unseen. "Everything should be ready now. I hope this is okay." Cole's mind raced. She had not only handled the tasks with care but had taken initiative, acting with confidence and thoughtfulness. Her behavior was instinctive, driven by genuine concern and awareness rather than instruction or fear. It was a revelation, one that left him both impressed and humbled. He realized that he had underestimated her in every way. He had thought her quiet nature meant she would hesitate or falter under unusual circumstances. Yet here she was, moving with grace and decisiveness, handling each situation with care and integrity. Her courage was subtle, quiet, and remarkable. Cole watched her as she finished her tasks, arranging everything perfectly before stepping back and examining her work. She nodded slightly to herself, satisfied, then moved toward the door. Before leaving, she glanced back at the chair where he had once pretended to be asleep and whispered again, almost to herself, "I hope he would approve." Cole felt a sudden warmth in his chest. He had not expected such an instinctive display of character, and he was struck by the depth of her nature. She had acted not for recognition or reward, but because it was the right thing to do. Her integrity, empathy, and quiet bravery left him in awe. As the day continued, Cole observed her from a distance, noting how she moved through the house, interacted with objects, and carried out her duties. Each action was deliberate, each movement filled with awareness, and each gesture reflected thoughtfulness and care. He realized that her quiet nature was not a flaw but a strength, a shield that protected her, while her courage and integrity shone through in small, meaningful ways. By evening, the ranch settled into its familiar calm. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with warm colors, while the wind whispered through the trees. The horses rested in their stalls, and inside the house, Lila completed her final chores for the day. Cole remained in his office, reflecting on the events, replaying her actions, and realizing that he had misjudged her in ways he had never thought possible. He leaned back in his chair thinking about the quiet strength and bravery she had displayed. Her actions had revealed a side of her he had never seen before, a depth of character, a gentleness coupled with courage, and an instinctive sense of responsibility. He understood, in that moment, that true character often appeared in the smallest, quietest acts, and that Lila's quiet demeanor hid a remarkable inner strength. Cole realized that the shy maid who moved silently through his home was far more remarkable than he had imagined. She had not just completed tasks, she had acted with thoughtfulness, initiative, and care. He had expected hesitation, fear, or uncertainty, but instead, he had witnessed confidence, courage, and kindness, and in that realization he felt a mixture of admiration, respect, and surprise. He had set out to observe, to understand, and perhaps to test, but in the process he had discovered something far more valuable, the true depth of Lila's heart and the quiet strength of her character. As night fell over the ranch, Cole knew that this day would remain in his memory. The shy maid, through her subtle yet bold actions, had revealed something profound about herself, and about what it meant to be strong, brave, and genuinely kind. The ranch was quiet that evening, the sun slowly sinking behind the rolling hills and casting long shadows across the fields. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, a peaceful end to the day, and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind added a gentle rhythm to the scene. Cole stood near the window of his office, looking out at the vast land he had spent his life caring for, yet feeling a restlessness he couldn't shake. Thoughts of Lila filled his mind once again, her quiet bravery and thoughtful gestures replaying over and over in his head. He had spent the entire afternoon observing her, though she had no idea. Every small action she had taken, the way she adjusted papers, arranged cups, straightened blankets, or moved quietly through the rooms, had shown him a depth of character he hadn't anticipated. Her confidence was subtle, her bravery quiet, but her integrity shone brightly in every task she completed. Cole had expected hesitation, uncertainty, perhaps even nervousness, but she had surprised him at every turn. As the evening light dimmed, Cole considered a bold idea. He wanted to see how she would react if confronted with an unexpected, slightly unusual situation, one that required instinct and judgment rather than routine. It wasn't meant to frighten her or make her uncomfortable. He simply wanted to observe her natural reaction, the way she handled something unfamiliar. His curiosity was driven by admiration, not suspicion. He decided on a plan. He would pretend to leave an important document unattended on his desk and quietly step out of the office, leaving her to discover it. It was a harmless scenario, a small test of her instincts, her attentiveness, and her character. If she acted carelessly or ignored it, that would be one thing. But if she responded thoughtfully, he would gain insight into her integrity. Cole set the document carefully on the desk, making sure it looked slightly disorganized as if it had been left in a hurry. He then quietly slipped out of the office, moving down the hall where he could watch without being noticed. Lila was in the main hall, dusting a shelf, humming softly, unaware of the small challenge that awaited her. Moments later, she entered the office, her eyes immediately scanning the room. Cole's heart pounded as he watched her notice the document. She paused, tilting her head slightly, her expression calm and thoughtful. Instead of picking it up immediately, she looked around, as if considering the situation. Cole could see the faint crease in her brow, the subtle sign of concentration that revealed she was thinking carefully about what to do. Then, without hesitation, she approached the desk and examined the papers. Her hands moved delicately over the edges, straightening them, ensuring nothing was damaged or disturbed. She didn't rush and she didn't act nervously. She simply worked with care, guided by instinct and a sense of responsibility. Cole felt a surge of admiration. Her actions were not mechanical. They were deliberate, thoughtful, and full of integrity. She didn't need to be told what to do. She acted because it was the right thing to do. Every movement she made reflected her character, a combination of thoughtfulness, courage, and quiet confidence that left him stunned. But what happened next truly froze him in shock. As Lila continued, she noticed something unusual on the floor, a small slip of paper that had fallen from the folder. Without hesitation, she bent down and picked it up, scanning it carefully. Her eyes widened slightly as she read its contents, but instead of panicking or showing fear, she acted decisively. She carefully placed the paper back in the folder, then adjusted the documents on the desk so that everything was neat and organized. Cole's breath caught. He had expected carefulness, but he had not expected this level of awareness and instinctive action. Lila had noticed the small detail he hadn't even thought about and had addressed it calmly, efficiently, and respectfully. Her ability to notice, analyze, and act without prompting left him speechless. She then did something even more unexpected. She approached the chair where Cole had pretended to sit the previous day and gently pressed her hand on the back, adjusting the cushion so it was perfectly aligned. She straightened the blanket that lay draped over it, smoothing it carefully. Then, softly and almost reverently, she whispered, "Everything is ready. I hope this is as it should be." Cole could hardly believe what he was seeing. She had anticipated his needs, corrected small issues, and taken initiative in a way that went far beyond any ordinary expectation. Her actions were bold, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in their confidence, precision, and thoughtfulness. She had revealed a part of herself that he had never seen before, a part that was courageous, intelligent, and remarkably attentive. For a long moment, Cole remained completely still, almost paralyzed by the realization. He had expected to see hesitation, nervousness, or perhaps a small mistake. Instead, he saw a person who was quietly confident, fully aware and willing to take responsibility without being asked. The strength of her character was undeniable, and it struck him deeply. He remembered all the times he had assumed her shyness meant weakness or timidity. How wrong he had been. Her quiet nature was not a sign of fear, but a reflection of careful observation, thoughtfulness, and self-control. She acted decisively when it mattered, guided by instinct, integrity, and empathy. Cole's assumptions were shattered, replaced by admiration and awe. Leela straightened the last few items on the desk, then stepped back and examined her work. She nodded slightly to herself, satisfied, then began to leave the room. But before closing the door, she glanced back at the chair once more, her eyes soft and thoughtful. Cole realized she had been aware of him the whole time, though she didn't know he had been watching and had acted not to impress, but because she naturally wanted to do what was right. Cole's mind raced. He had not anticipated such careful, instinctive action, and he felt a mixture of shock and deep respect. Lila had demonstrated a bravery he had never expected. Quiet, subtle, and yet profound. She had taken initiative, handled delicate items, and corrected small problems, all without hesitation. He had been ready to observe her, to test her character, but instead he had witnessed something extraordinary. The shock of that realization made him pause. He leaned against the wall, his thoughts racing as he tried to process what he had just seen. She had acted not out of fear or obligation, but from genuine integrity. Her confidence was quiet, but it was unmistakable. Her courage was subtle, but undeniable, and her thoughtfulness, kindness, and awareness had revealed a depth of character that left him completely awestruck. Cole realized that he had misjudged her in every way. Her shyness had led him to assume she was timid, uncertain, or easily intimidated. In reality, she was thoughtful, bold in small yet significant ways, and capable of remarkable intuition. She had acted without direction, without hesitation, guided only by her own understanding of what was right. He thought about how often people are judged by appearances, by outward behavior, or by assumptions. Lila was proof that true character is revealed not by how loud or bold someone appears, but by the instinctive, thoughtful choices they make. Her courage was quiet, but it was there in every gesture, every decision, and every careful action she took that evening. As the night deepened, Cole found himself reflecting on what he had witnessed. He realized that Lila had shown him something far more important than obedience or diligence. She had shown him integrity, awareness, and the courage to act thoughtfully in unexpected situations. It was a lesson in humility for him, a reminder that assumptions can be wrong, and that true character often reveals itself in subtle, quiet ways. The wind whispered softly through the trees outside, and the ranch was bathed in the gentle glow of evening lights. Cole remained in the office, leaning back in his chair, unable to stop thinking about the shy maid whose actions had left him frozen in awe. He knew that tomorrow and every day afterward his perception of her would be completely changed. She was not just a maid or a helper or a quiet presence in the house. She was a person of remarkable courage, awareness, and integrity, someone who had acted with thoughtfulness and bravery in a way that left him astonished. And as he finally allowed himself to breathe, Cole realized that this moment would stay with him forever. The quiet strength and boldness of Lila had left a mark on him, a reminder that the truest qualities of a person are often revealed in moments of instinctive care, thoughtful action, and unassuming courage. He had witnessed something extraordinary, and he knew that nothing about his perception of her or their relationship would ever be the same again. The morning after the surprising events, the ranch was alive with the soft sounds of daily life. Birds chirped in the distance, and the golden light of the sun reflected on the rolling fields, painting the land in warmth. Cole awoke earlier than usual, his mind still filled with thoughts of Lila and her remarkable actions from the previous day. Every moment replayed in his head, the careful folding of papers, the gentle adjustment of blankets, and her instinctive thoughtful decisions that had left him in awe. He realized as he got ready for the day that his perception of Lila had changed completely. She was no longer simply the shy maid who quietly moved through the house. She was a person of depth, courage, and integrity, someone whose character shone quietly but powerfully. He felt a mixture of respect, admiration, and curiosity. He wanted to understand her even more, not to test her, but to truly know the person who had surprised him so profoundly. Down in the main hall, Lila was already at work. She moved with her usual quiet precision, tidying rooms, arranging items, and attending to small details that made the house feel orderly and welcoming. Cole watched her from a distance, appreciating not only her skill but the care and thoughtfulness behind every action. Her humility, her quiet confidence, and her genuine concern for the house and the people in it had left a mark on him that he could not ignore. Cole decided to step out of his office and approach her directly, not as an observer, but as someone who wanted to express his appreciation. He found her dusting a shelf in the library, humming softly as she worked. The sunlight streaming through the tall windows highlighted the careful movements of her hands, the gentle tilt of her head, and the soft focus in her eyes. Cole paused for a moment, struck by the grace and simplicity of the scene. "Lila," he said quietly, not wanting to startle her. She turned toward him, a faint smile on her face, slightly surprised by his presence. Her posture was upright but relaxed, and she seemed calm, confident, and unaware of the thoughts that had been running through his mind. "I wanted to thank you," Cole began, his voice steady but carrying a hint of sincerity that she rarely heard directed at her. "For yesterday, for the way you handled everything, for your care, your thoughtfulness, and the way you acted without hesitation. I was wrong to assume anything about you based on shyness or quietness. What I saw was remarkable." Lila's eyes widened slightly, and a soft blush appeared on her cheeks. She had always been modest, not used to receiving direct praise, but she nodded politely, accepting it with her usual humility. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "I only did what I thought was right." Cole smiled, realizing that her response was exactly what he had expected, simple, honest, and sincere. "And that is exactly why it impressed me so much," he replied. "You didn't act to impress me or anyone else. You acted because it was the right thing to do. That takes courage, awareness, and integrity, qualities that are rare and precious." Lila looked down for a moment, processing his words. She had never considered her actions in such a way, had never thought that her quiet attentiveness could carry such significance. Yet in Cole's gaze she saw genuine respect and admiration, and it gave her a subtle sense of pride without arrogance. The day moved forward slowly, as the usual rhythm of ranch life continued. Cole and Lila worked in proximity, yet there was a newfound sense of understanding and trust between them. Cole noticed how naturally she carried herself, how gracefully she moved from task to task, and how quietly confident she had become in handling responsibilities. He was aware of her character in a way that he had never been before, deeply, completely, and with appreciation. As they moved through the house together, Cole observed her not just as an employee but as a person. Her humility did not diminish her strength. Her quietness did not hide her courage. Every choice she made, every careful action revealed a depth of understanding and awareness that left him in awe. The shy maid had shown him that strength is not always loud, bravery is not always visible, and character is often revealed in the smallest, most thoughtful gestures. Later that afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent, casting a warm golden glow across the ranch, Cole and Lila found themselves in the garden, tending to the flowers and plants. It was a simple activity, yet it allowed them to share a quiet companionship that went beyond words. Cole admired the gentle way she handled each plant, her attention to detail, and her care for the living things around her. He realized that the same thoughtfulness she had shown in the house extended to every part of her life. "That is it. You know," Cole said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I've learned something important about people over the years. It's easy to assume things based on appearances, on quietness, on outward behavior. But true character, real strength, often shows itself in the smallest acts. And yesterday, you reminded me of that." Lila looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the evening. She smiled faintly, understanding the meaning behind his words.
"I just do what I think is right," she said simply.
"I never expect anyone to notice." Cole shook his head, smiling. "But that's exactly what makes it remarkable. You've taught me that courage doesn't always need to be loud, that integrity doesn't always need recognition, and that kindness can be more powerful than anything else. I respect you more than I can say." For the first time, Lila allowed herself to feel the full weight of his admiration. She had always been quiet, modest, and careful, but now she realized that her actions had meaning beyond what she had imagined. The shy maid who moved silently through the house was no longer invisible in Cole's eyes. She was seen, respected, and valued for who she truly was. The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful moments. Cole continued his work on the ranch, and Lila continued her duties, but the dynamic between them had shifted. There was a quiet understanding, an unspoken bond of respect and trust that had grown from the previous events. Cole found himself watching her with a sense of admiration that went beyond curiosity. He valued her presence, her character, and the integrity she displayed in every action. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Cole found himself reflecting on the journey of the past few days. He realized that the shy maid had taught him something invaluable, that the measure of a person is not in what they say or how loudly they assert themselves, but in the care, thoughtfulness, and courage they show in their daily actions. Lila had shown him the strength of quiet courage, the power of thoughtful action, and the beauty of integrity. He felt a sense of gratitude and humility. He had expected a simple observation, a minor understanding of a shy maid's character, but what he had received was far more profound. Lila had revealed the true meaning of courage, thoughtfulness, and quiet strength. Her actions had left a lasting impression, one that would shape the way he viewed people, relationships, and the subtle power of human character. As night fell over the ranch, the stars twinkled in the clear sky, and the soft sounds of the countryside filled the air. Cole and Lila completed their tasks for the day, moving through the house with a sense of calm and purpose. The quiet bond between them had grown stronger, built on mutual respect admiration, and understanding. Cole paused in the hallway, watching Lila move through the rooms with her usual care and attention. He realized that she had changed not only his perception of her, but also his understanding of people in general. True character is revealed not through loud declarations, tests, or challenges, but through small, thoughtful, instinctive actions that reflect the heart. He smiled to himself, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in a long time. The shy maid who had once seemed quiet and reserved had become a source of inspiration, a reminder that courage, integrity, and kindness can exist quietly, yet with immense impact. As he finally prepared for bed, Cole reflected on the journey of the past few days. He realized that Lila's actions had not only surprised him, but had also taught him a valuable lesson about trust, respect, and the depth of human character. He felt gratitude for having witnessed her courage and integrity firsthand, and he knew that the bond they shared, built on understanding, admiration, and quiet respect, would continue to grow. And as the ranch settled into the stillness of the night with the horses resting peacefully in the stables and the wind whispering through the trees, Cole felt a profound sense of connection. The shy maid, with her quiet courage and thoughtful actions, had changed the way he saw the world and the people in it. She had left an indelible mark on his heart, and he knew that her presence would always remind him of the power of quiet strength, integrity, and the beauty of thoughtful, courageous action. The night wrapped the ranch in calm serenity, and Cole finally allowed himself to relax, knowing that the lesson he had learned from Lila's simple yet profound actions would stay with him forever. The shy maid, once quiet and reserved, had become a symbol of strength, integrity, and kindness, qualities that would forever influence the way he lived, led, and understood the world around him.